Ma wrapped each piece neatly in paper and hung them in the attic where they would keep safe and dry. One morning Pa went away before daylight with the horses and wagon, and that night he came home with a wagon load of fish. The big wagon box was piled full, and some of the fish were as big as Laura. Pa had gone to the Lake Pepin and caught them all with a net. Ma cut large slices of flaky white fish without one bone for Laura and Mary. They all feasted on good fresh fish. All they did not eat was salted down in barrels for the winter. Laura and Ma watched the fire for several days. When smoke stopped coming through the cracks, Laura would bring more hickory chips, and Ma would put them on the fire under the meat. All the time there was a little smell of smoke in the yard, and when the door opened, a thick, smoky, meaty smell came out. At last, Pa said the venison had smoked long enough. Then they let the fire go out, and Pa took all the strips and pieces of meat out of the hollow tree. "There's nothing better than good hickory smoke," Pa said. "That'll make good venison, so that it'll keep anywhere in the weather." Then he took his gun, and slinging his axe over his shoulder, he went away to the clearing to cut down some more trees. Pa shut the door, and a little smoke squeezed through the crack around it, and then a little smoke came out through the roof, but most of it was shut with the meat. So Laura ran to the block where Pa chopped wood and filled her apron with the fresh-smelling chips. Just inside the little door in the hollow log, Pa built a fire of tiny bits of bark and moss, and he laid some chips on it very carefully. Instead of burning quickly, the green chips smoldered and filled the hollow log with thick, choking smoke. He reached up through the little door and hung the meat on the nails as far up as he could reach. Then he put a ladder against the log, climbed up to the top, moved the roof to one side, and reached down inside to hang the meat on those nails. Then Pa put the roof back again, climbed down the ladder, and said to Laura, "Run over to the chopping block and fetch me some of those green hickory chips, new, clean, white ones." After the deer meat had been salted several days, Pa cut a hole near the end of each piece and put a string through it. Laura watched him do this, and then she watched him hang the meat on the nails in the hollow log. Pa had driven nails inside as far as he could reach from one end. Then he stood it up, put it on a little roof over the top, and cut a little door from one side near the bottom. On the piece that he cut out, he fastened leather hinges. Then he fitted it into place, and that was the little door with the bark still on it. Standing on end in the yard was a tall length cut from the trunk of a big hollow tree. So as much food as possible must be stored away in the little house before winter came. Pa skinned the deer carefully and salted and stretched the hides, for he would make soft leather of them. Then he cut up the meat and sprinkled salt all over the pieces as he laid them on a board. Pa might hunt alone all day in the bitter cold, in the big woods covered with snow, and come home at night with nothing for Ma, Mary, and Laura to eat. The bears would be hidden away in their dens, where they would sleep soundly all winter long. The squirrels would be curled up in their nests in hollow trees, with their furry tails wrapped snugly around their noses. The deer and the rabbits would be shy and swift. Even if Pa could get a deer, it would be poor and thin, not fat and plump as the deer were in the fall. For winter was coming. The days were shorter, and frost crawled up the window panes at night. Soon the snow would come. Then the log house would almost be buried in snowdrifts, and the lake and the streams would freeze. In the bitter cold weather, Pa could not be sure of finding any wild game to shoot for meat.